Who is the best center in NBA history? I know that might sound like an easy question. There's answers like Kareem, Shaq, Wilt, and none of those are wrong, but in my personal opinion, I think there's one name that needs to be thrown in there more often, and let me show you guys why. Hakeem Olajuwon was born in Laos, Nigeria, which is one of the poorest and most crime-ridden places in Nigeria. Hakeem started as a soccer player, which is where he gets his extremely good footwork from. He didn't play basketball till the age of 15. He wasn't highly recruited either. It was pure chance that a friend of a college basketball coach had seen Olajuwon play and recommended him to him. His college career didn't start out too well. Wasn't very good as a freshman, didn't see the floor often. His sophomore year is when he blossomed into a truly elite player. He led the University of Houston to consecutive NCAA championship games, and in one of those years actually won the NCAA Most Outstanding Player Award. While he was still in college, he was working out with multiple-time NBA MVP Moses Malone, which really impressed NBA coaches. They knew this kid was going to work hard to become something great, and he did. He forfeited his senior year to declare for the NBA draft and was taken number 1 overall, even in front of Michael Jordan. Once he got to the NBA, it was pretty clear that he was going to be one of the best players in the league. His offensive game was so refined, and yet he still was somehow better on defense. I want to touch on both these subjects, but first, let's go through offense. This is a graph of NBA players during their rookie year. On the bottom is field goal percent, and on the side is points per game. You want to be here on the graph if possible. But just the way basketball works, the more points you score, the lower your field goal percentage is going to be. Here is Hakeem, averaging the 4th most out of any player here. It doesn't look as impressive when you're comparing it to Shaq, but when you consider the shots Hakeem was taking versus the shots Shaq was taking, it becomes a lot more impressive. Hakeem quickly declared himself king of the post. He would go to his patented dream shake that would get anybody to bite. Even the best defenders in the league, people like David Robinson, Shaq, Patrick Ewing, they would all fall for it, and he'd make them look like idiots. When we talk about Hakeem Olajuwon, his defense is arguably the most important piece of his game. He not only holds the all-time record for blocked shots, he did it incredibly efficiently. Here's another graph showing games played and how many blocks a player has. Let's go over a few names on the list. One that stands out immediately is Robert Parrish, because he played more games than anybody, but he's barely on the list for blocks. Another notable name is Mark Eaton. Look how high he is for blocks while only playing about 900 games. I know you guys are probably thinking, because of the theme of this video, where's Hakeem? He's here, in a league of his own. Unlike most centers back in his day, Hakeem had the ability to switch on to guards and wings. Players like this were not a thing back in his day. He was able to stop anybody from Michael Jordan to Karl Malone. I know Hakeem has these truly mind-boggling block stats, but there's something even crazier: his ability to steal the ball. This is a graph showing top 10 all-time in steals. It's full of people like John Stockton, Chris Paul, these small guards. You have people like LeBron and Pippen who are some really athletic wings. And then at the top, you have a Hakeem, who is a 7-foot center, stealing the ball more than most guards have ever done. Now that we looked at both of those, I want to combine them. This is a graph for the most stocks in a career, which is steals plus blocks for those who didn't know. The bottom right is John Stockton, lots of steals, not a lot of blocks. But in the top right is Hakeem. He has more blocks than anybody and is second in steals. There's names like Kareem, Tim Duncan, Dikembe Mutombo. They don't come close to touching Hakeem here. This man's ability to be a defensive menace will never be matched. Next topic, I want to hit something else. Here are the only players to ever win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. Out of these 3, how many of them do you think also won a Finals MVP the same year? I'll give you a hint. It's just Hakeem. This is one of those things I don't think will ever be recreated. He achieved the most perfect season in NBA history. I will give a shout out to Wemby though. I think he has the best chance I've ever seen at ever recreating this. I want to go into this next part by showing Hakeem's head-to-head stats versus some of the best centers in NBA history. First, we're going to start with Patrick Ewing, as he's someone Hakeem gets compared to a lot. But if you really look at it, their head-to-head stats, Patrick Ewing didn't do a single thing better than Hakeem did to him. They actually played each other in the finals one year too. The Rockets ended up winning in 7, but Hakeem outscored Patrick Ewing every single game. This is also while shooting better than him 5 out of the 6 games. I truly think it's a disservice to Hakeem to even compare him to Patrick Ewing in the slightest. Up next is David Robinson. He's probably one of Hakeem's biggest rivals, yet the stats just favor Hakeem in pretty much every way possible. They eventually played in the playoffs too, and Hakeem destroyed this man. He outscored him every game, shot better than him almost every game, and beat the Spurs in 6 games. He destroyed him. Alright, up next is Shaq. Let's compare Hakeem's stats to Shaq's stats in the finals. He outscored him every single game as well, while sweeping him. In full transparency, this was Shaq's 2nd season in the league, but it's not like he was a bum. He was averaging 30 a game. This was his athletic prime and he still couldn't even keep up with Hakeem. The last player I want to compare Hakeem to is arguably the best center of all time, Kareem. Looking at their head-to-head stats, it's hard not to say Hakeem was better against him. I know people are going to say that Kareem was old, which he was, but he was still making All-NBA first and second teams. Just because he was old doesn't mean he was bad. They did play each other in the playoffs one time too. Hakeem ended up outscoring him 4 out of the 5 games, while also beating a Kareem and Magic-led Lakers team in 5 games. Again, people are going to say this only happened because Kareem was old, but this year, Kareem was the first team All-NBA center. He wasn't a bum. And if we're going to give the age excuse, then we have to acknowledge the fact how young Hakeem was. This was only his 2nd season in the league, and he was putting up these kinds of numbers to the best center of all time at that point. I do want to make one more argument against Kareem. He did most of his winning in the 70s in an era that truly wasn't competitive. I mean, look, they didn't even start counting stuff like turnovers and blocks until he was already 4 or 5 MVPs in. That's not competitive. If we're not going to count Bill Russell's rings, Bill Russell's rebounds, and Wilt Chamberlain's points as true stats, then we need to put some sort of an asterisk on Kareem's as well, because they were done in a much less competitive era. Alright guys, that wraps up why I think Hakeem Olajuwon might just be the best center to ever play in the NBA. If you guys disagree, make sure to let me know who you think is the best down below. Don't forget to like the video, hit subscribe, ring the bell. I appreciate all the comments, all the love. I'll see you guys in the next one.